The lesson from my life is learn to love thy neighbour. When I was 3 years old, I knew that I was different, that I wasn't the same as other children, and that there was something in my mind telling me I am not the same as the rest of the world. When I got older, maybe 6 years old, and I started mixing with other children, I knew that it was something in me that was about relationships that was different, and the way that I thought about and I looked at other men was different to how other children did. And I didn't have a word for it, I didn't understand what it meant, I just knew that there was a difference that meant I couldn't be myself around other people. I grew up in a religious house. Both my parents have a faith, which is still strong, and that meant that I was exposed to what I would call a traditional Anglican Christian faith. I had people come to the house and we had home groups where people would discuss the Bible. That made it quite difficult for me growing up and realising that my sexuality wasn't compatible with what I've been told about the Christian faith. Made it very difficult to form what I would call a normal relationship with my father, because I had no reference point from my religious upbringing on how I should be interacting with men. So as I grew up through my teenage years, the world I was seeing around me was not the same as the world that was inside me, and it came to a crisis point where I considered throwing myself out of a window because I didn't know who I was, who I was meant to be. Maybe that's something all people go through, but it just was that much worse because I had no one else to turn to. Luckily, I didn't throw myself out of a window and I'm here now. Someone once told me that if you don't shape your life, someone else will. And when I went to university, that's when I discovered who I really was. There were people around me that were like me. I could be myself and have genuine conversations. And because I could have genuine conversations, I had my first relationship, which was great until it ended. And at that point, I knew I really did need my family around me because I was having another crisis where I couldn't handle the emotions from my first end of the relationship, my first love. And I decided that the way to do that would be to come out, and it's what I needed to do to be honest and be able to have that support. I wrote a letter to my family and handed it to my mum, and then I went to my room and waited for the fallout. My mum came upstairs and she read the letter back to me line by line and gave a response to each line. And the first line I'd written was, "If you want me to leave, then I'll leave the house." And she said, "Why would we want you to leave? You're our son and we love you." And from that moment on, as much as I was in tears, I knew that everything would be fine. In my mind, I'd spent 15 years getting used to myself and what it meant to be me. And for my mum and the rest of my family at that moment, they were going to have to play catch up. So my mum spent 4 years researching what it meant to have a gay son and sexuality, trying to reconcile that with religion. And it was difficult for her. She spent a long time talking to other people, vicars, seeing what the church said in different scriptures, what happens in different parts of the world. And the one thing that she came back to was that the core Christian message is about love and acceptance of each other. My sister suggested that as a family we go to Pride, which I loved. My mum needed a little bit more convincing that this community would be open and accepting of her. So I bought her a pendant with crosses on it, and it was LGBT themed to show it was safe, and she loved it. I'd been baptised when I was 10 years old, and now this was Mum's turn. A real baptism of community spirit at Pride, and it was one hell of an experience. And as a family, we weren't disappointed. Mum fully embraced the day. She took part in the community parade, she held the banner with me and my sister, and she spoke to people to really get to the truth of their experiences at Pride and what it meant for them to be them. As a family, we're still on this journey together. My mum is waxing lyrical about the amazing experience that she had at Pride and that real sense of being part of something that was truly good and that people could be themselves. And she is sharing that message with her church now, as she is a vicar. We're still on this journey together as a family, and since becoming a vicar, my mum has been sharing her experiences of Pride and all the positive things that she's seen and the way that people talk to each other and treat each other with kindness. My mum is still on her own journey where she's exploring what gender means in terms of the church and faith, and I'm very proud to say that on an occasion she has used her gay son as a trump card to get a job in the church.